Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with a brand new beard hedger. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the beard hedger allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code screenaddicts for 20% off and free shipping.
Recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Fire up the projectors, turn on your TVs, and adjust your antennas. It's time for the Screen Addicts Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Screen Addicts Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Steven the Puzzler Sosa.
And as always, I'm your other co-host, Chris. It's my turn, baby, Villegas.
It is your turn. Your turn at what, Chris? What exactly are you trying to say there?
It is my turn to roll the dice. It is my turn to draw the card. It is my turn to go to jail.
No get out of jail free cards, huh? But it sounds like you're playing some board games there. Well, I guess that means that a movie is coming out that was possibly inspired by a board game, which would be Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, the long anticipated, I guess, adaptation from the very, very popular board game that I have never played, man. I'm kind of at awe with myself that I've honestly never played. I've had people ask me before if I wanted to join them and play this game. I guess because it's part of it is the theatrics of the game. You know, you want to have like a bit of personality to act out some of these characters. And I thought, damn, that seems perfect for me. But I've just never really had the opportunity to do so. Have you ever played it?
Man, I've never played it, but for this past Christmas, I actually got my son a starter game. Like it's how you get started in Dungeons and Dragons. We sat down and tried to read through all the rules, and holy crap, dude, it's so much. It is so much, and I'm like...
They say that the best way to go about it is to play with someone who has played it before, and then they'll be able to guide you through all the rules and all the things that you'd have to do. Because I guess a lot of it is improv, too. Like, you kind of make things up along as you go. I'm not too familiar with it, so I know we're going to have a lot of Dungeons and Dragons people like, you idiots! That's not how you do it! But... again, I don't know anything about it because I've never personally played it, but what I do know is movies. And I do know that this new Dungeons & Dragons movies, it looks really entertaining. It looks funny. It has already, not that we have any bearing on Rotten Tomatoes, but when a movie is universally loved or universally hated, that does have some merit. I will give it that. It's the in-between stuff, the middle ratings, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But this movie has like 96%, so I'm thinking, okay, well then it probably is pretty good. It has an all-star cast, including Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez. I, again, think it looks really good. It looks like a huge budget was put into this movie based on the trailers alone.
It does.
So I'm very excited to see it. It was funny because a friend of mine, Albie, he went and saw it like 2 weeks ago. I guess Amazon Prime was offering subscribers the opportunity to go see the movie like 2 weeks in advance. So I guess you just didn't know about it unless you were a D&D fan. And so that was pretty cool. And he actually saw it. I should have had him on here to talk about it. But yeah, he said it was a great movie. He said it was a good time. And it was everything that you could actually hope it to be. Because if you remember, back in the year 2000, they tried making a Dungeons and Dragons movie before, and it had Jeremy Irons. It was a bomb. Like, the movie was terrible. And from what I can remember, people were like, it had really no semblance of how fun the game could be, and the effects. You know, it was the year 2000, so they were just doing with what they could deal with. But apparently that movie was just a huge... I mean, I saw it. It had Marlon Wayans in it, man, and some kid named Sean Whalen or something like that. And it was just a huge flop. Didn't go anywhere. Lost the production company that produced it a lot of money. And I'm thinking, wow, it took over 20 years to try this again. So I guess that's how bad it was. But what do you think of this new movie? What do you think of the previews?
Previews look good, man. Like you, I'm not a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. Like we mentioned, never played the game, so I like kind of going into this blind and kind of not. I get to experience the world firsthand in a movie, which is cool, but then I may not get a bunch of Easter eggs or subtle nods to the game that are going throughout the movie that more than likely will be in there if a Dungeons and Dragons player had already watched it and they like it. So I may be missing out on a lot of little things, but I'm excited.
Sounds good. Well, I know that neither of us have played D&D before, but there are a couple of games that we most definitely have played, and that's basically what this episode is going to be about. We took a deep dive on some of these popular board games or unpopular board games, and we thought, what other board games would make good movies? So that's what we will be doing this week, as we will be ranking our top 3 board games that we feel would make a good movie, cinematically speaking. Without further ado, Chris, what would your number 3 board game be?
My number 3 board game, and let me tell you, when we first discussed this topic, I was like, I don't know. It may not be too fun. We'll see. And then I started thinking about, all right, so what could I do with some of these board games? Who could direct some of these board games? And then it got really, really fun. Saying that, my number 3, I'm going to take the Game of Life board game. You go through Game of Life, your little car. Throughout the game, you can pick up, you earn a job, earn a family, this and that. But I think a Game of Life movie directed by M. Night Shyamalan, there's so many twists and turns that you could take with this.
A horror spin.
Horror spin, eventually. Maybe throw some aliens in the Game of Life, you know? Like at the end, your wife ends up being a Martian or some crap like that. I think it would be fun. I think it would be cool to see some sort of adaptation of the Game of Life with an M. Night Shyamalan twist.
That is definitely a twist, because there were no aliens or monsters in that game, but that's the point of a movie. And that's the problem in itself. It's something that if you're going to make a board game into a movie, you're going to have to expand it for at least 100 minutes. Like, how do you make adapt a movie into a board game? So you definitely have to be creative, which that Game of Life, that is definitely creative. But
have you ever played it?
You know, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah?
And
okay.
I remember the cars had the little heads that you stick into the cars.
Yeah.
Like every time you have a new family member, like you have a spouse, and then you have children, so then you stick one more little dot into the car, and I mean, and then it had the spin wheel, right? It has the spin
the spin wheel in the middle.
Colored, yeah, that, I mean, as far as that goes, like I think the last one that we played, because we're a big board game family, like I'm sure you guys are, and we played Simpsons Life, because that's what we're big on. We're big on variations of these popular board games. Like we have a bunch of different versions of a lot of these games that we're going to be talking about. And Life, definitely, the Simpsons Life was Connor's favorite because he always loved the Simpsons. Yeah, I could see M. Night Shyamalan though, man. I guess they're all going to die or something.
At the end, it was all a game.
You know what's funny about that is that your number 3 pick is somewhat similar to mine in the sense that they took the idea and just completely threw it away and made something completely different. And my number 3 pick is Battleship. And now I know that Battleship was already made, and what I'm saying is that they put aliens in that game. When did we ever see aliens in the original Battleship movie?
It depends on who you played against. Because I got some of my family members I think are aliens, so it could have
No, Chris, not that kind of aliens. I'm talking about outer space aliens.
Oh, okay.
But my thing is that it was when I saw the first trailer, I'm like, what are these like Beyblades they're shooting at the battleships? Like, what's going on here? And so then you go and you see the movie and you're like, oh wow, they went full on outer space alien sci-fi with this. So that was a little unexpected. But my number 3 Battleship is a old school submarine movie, kind of like The Hunt for Red October or Crimson Tide. That's the kind of expectation that I had when I thought they were going to make a Battleship movie. You know, you could just have different battleships fighting each other. And what was the other one? U-571 with Matthew McConaughey. That is one of the most underrated submarine movies that have ever been made. And I'm surprised that more people don't talk about it. But I guess in, the history of submarine and war movies like that, like Under Siege, Crimson Tide, The Hunt for Red October, those ones that stand the test of time until you see my new Battleship movie. Who directs it? I don't know. Definitely not Peter Berg, who went on to direct the Battleship movie. A lot of people thought Michael Bay directed that Battleship movie because it looked so much like Transformers, but surprisingly it wasn't. It was actually Peter Berg. But yeah, that's my number 3 is the correct version of Battleship. I'm going to swing into my number 2, which is the Settlers of Catan. And Catan is a game that very much, it's not too reminiscent of Oregon Trail, but it made me think of Oregon Trail. We can't use Oregon Trail because that's more of a computer game. That's more of a video game. Even though they do have like a card game, it's not the same. Oregon Trail is straight computer, even though I still feel like the Oregon Trail would be a great movie if they decided to adapt into one. But Catan, you're basically acquiring land, property, islands, and with this version, you could have it very much like the Old West. It could be in any terrain, but you're acquiring land from locals, from peasants, from villains, from anything. So that kind of brings in this like, old school Western epic style movie. And I don't know. I was watching 1922 on Paramount Plus, and I was thinking about that. I was like, man, land acquiring, and even recently with Far and Away, just getting land. And I thought, man, this kind of, it's very much like that. Even though maybe I'm kind of discounting it because it's already been made, but with updated effects, I think Catan would be pretty good in a new IMAX version of it.
I've never heard of that game. Actually, ever before in my life.
It's very popular. There's a lot of versions of it, and it's pretty global. Like, it's everywhere. It's one of those games that if you go to any store, like Target, Walmart, just any general department store, you will see it with the rest of the board games. Like, it's just right there, and you're like, oh, well. But nice. You're number 2, Chris. I need to know it.
All right. My number 2, I'm going to go with this epic war movie directed by Steven Spielberg. And I'm going to go with the game of Risk.
Yeah.
I think that would be just amazing to see the game of Risk played out and then have Steven Spielberg direct it the way he does his war movies. I think it would be awesome.
That would be really, really good. I can absolutely see that. Like War Horse, when you watch some of the battle scenes in War Horse, that definitely screams Risk because it puts it more in that older time period. That's a pretty solid choice. I could definitely see that. And Risk in itself, those board game, global domination, games that have been out, like those are very compelling games, and no problem with fans gravitating to something like that because it's just like a traditional war movie. And with Spielberg doing it, like that guy doesn't know how to make a war movie. I mean, Saving Private Ryan is,
and one of the things, man, it already takes forever to play Risk. Like,
right.
When you play that board game, it's at least, 2-3 hours, 4 hours, depends on who you're playing with. Imagine how long a movie could be.
I mean...
Oh my gosh. It'd have to be a miniseries.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You could definitely turn that into a 10-episode series, for sure.
So cool. That's my number 2. What do you got?
Well, I guess before we do number 1... Man, we ran through these real quick.
Oh,
but
yeah, we did.
I guess before our number 1s, I mean, did you have any honorable mentions?
One I have, I would like, and then again, this is putting a complete weird spin on stuff, but I would like to see Operation shot and filmed like the movie Hostel.
So you want Eli Roth to come in and direct a horror version of Operation? There seems to be a little trend going on with your picks here. You want like horror spins on all these games.
Yes, I do. And you'll see it with my number 1 pick. It's going to be crazy too. But, man, you're already cutting somebody up and you're taking these things out of people. Might as well make it scary and ruthless and nasty.
Yeah, and Eli Roth is just the type of director to do something like that. These poor beloved children's games are just being so tainted right now. All right, so Eli Roth Operation sounds good, dude. I'll sign up for that, no problem. Do you have any more?
That's the only one I had.
Well, I had a couple myself, and I mean, someone has to make a comedy about Cards Against Humanity, right? It could be a dirty comedy. I don't care. The creators of American Pie, bring them in, make a Cards Against Humanity movie. What the plot would be on that? I have no idea, but people just want some raunchy comedy every once in a while, so they can figure it out. Yeah. That's not my job. I'm not the writer of the Cards Against Humanity motion picture, but I will find someone who can. And, thinking of a horror version of Operation, like what about Mousetrap? Like that seems like
Oh, yeah.
That seems like a very good. You could do some pretty horror stuff in Mousetrap, or it could be like
Isn't
a
that?
wholesome.
I was about to say, isn't that already Stuart Little?
Yeah, I guess. Or you know what it reminds me of is that movie. You remember that old indie horror flick Cube, when they're in that cube
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
just like going to the next cube and it's just like a puzzle and stuff. Like that could almost somewhat be like Mousetrap, but Ticket to Ride is another game that's really popular where people are building railroads across the world, and you have to build the longest railroad. It's kind of like Catan. Like it's a very kind of a real life game, real life game style, and shoots and ladders. There's got to be something that can be done with shoots and ladders, right? I mean, I don't know, like, what?
Like a Maze Runner type of movie?
Yes, exactly. Exactly like Maze Runner. Yes. You're going in one way, you fall down a slide, and then you have to climb up a ladder. I mean, I don't know how compelling that could be for 90 minutes, but just people sliding, climbing up ladders. Wow, that's...
If some of them die, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you like slide into like saws or something. Man, we're terrorizing these these board games. Why do they all have to be scary? Have we not had one wholesome board game? I'm hoping we do, but
all mine have been death. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. What are we saying about board game night? It's just one of those. It's like Game Night, the movie Game Night with Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, where literally everything goes haywire and it's all crazy. That seems to be the perfect example of how most game nights go. Well, not really, but there's a lot of chaos in a regular game night. And I guess my final honorable mention is Clue. Of course, we all know that Clue's already been made. It's a popular 80s comedy. If you've never seen Clue, go watch it. It's a great cast.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny. I'm surprised they've never remade Clue. And I know that they've made the music, like a Clue musical before and a Clue stage play before, but I'm still surprised that they've never tried to retackle that concept of Clue. And you know what? I guess Murder Mystery, the Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston movie, is maybe the closest attempt to doing something like that because they're all on that yacht, right? I watched it one time. I don't really remember all the details of the first Murder Mystery, and I'm probably going to rewatch it because part 2 is coming out this week, actually.
Or The Onion could be almost considered like Clue as well.
The Onion?
The Knives Out.
Oh, right. Glass Onion.
Glass Onion. There you go.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, that definitely it felt like Clue had these different characters. You're probably right. That's probably the most contemporary remake of Clue without even realizing it. I mean, I guess if you want to put your loving horror spin on it, of course, it could just be in a situation where the deaths are way more gruesome than they end up being. But I think we'll just leave Clue as a comedy for the sake of having some kind of lighthearted material here. But okay, well, now to our number ones, our favorite board games. And you know what, Chris? I'm going to let you finish, and I'm going to go with my number one. Now, my number one is probably one of the most popular board games of all time, and it has just thousands of versions of it, and it is Monopoly. And I want to make Monopoly into a Succession-style movie. And that's probably because I've been watching Succession all the way the last week leading up to this premiere from last night. And Succession, and even Brian Cox looks like Mr. Moneybags. Like, he's an old guy trying to control everything. Now, Succession-style Monopoly is very vulgar. It's very mean-spirited, kind of like most families when they actually play Monopoly, because families hate each other when you're playing that game, much like the Roy family in Succession. So I'm basically already watching a Monopoly movie. It's just a long series of it where they're trying to control, just different groups, different organizations, different media empires, and just absorbing all these companies into theirs. And I thought, man, this is when I thought of the board game idea, or when we were talking about it, I was just thinking, man, Monopoly Succession, that came just first in my mind. And it's just one of those things that fits because that's exactly what it is. And I'm surprised that they haven't had more movies or television series about stuff like that. And Monopoly essentially is more of an adult-based game, but kids actually love it. Like, you can teach kids about economics, and you can teach them about money spending. And I remember Connor was little one time, and he wanted to buy, like, all this stuff with no money. I'm like, well, that's not how you can do that. And he's like, why not? I'm like, because you don't have enough money, and it's a very interesting way of teaching kids about finances. And it could end in devastation, which most cases it does, but I just feel like Monopoly in a Succession-style movie or even TV series with, you know what, I'm going to cast Brian Cox as Mr. Moneybags himself, so Monopoly is my number one.
Oh, and I have a funny story, and Tasha's going to kill me.
Please hear it. Please tell it.
If she listens to this, she's going to kill me, but there's a running joke in my family that nobody ever plays Monopoly with Tasha. Because one time we were playing and she got so pissed off, she flipped the table like movie style. She got so pissed, man, she took that table and just flipped that son of a bitch. I'm done! And she left because nobody wanted to trade with her. Nobody wanted to like make deals with her. Oh, she was pissed.
Oh my god! Were the kids playing with you, or were you with other adults? Or what?
This was before we had kids, so we were just playing with friends and some cousins and stuff. Oh, but every time games are brought up, nobody wants to play Monopoly with Tasha. She gets too mad. Oh, it's hilarious.
Oh man, I can't wait to tell her, Chris. I have to make fun of her, and it's funny how just so mad people get. I mean, I get there too, because it's just like, I don't know what it is about Monopoly, but it just incites rage. And Uno is like that too. Man. You have one card and then here's a draw 4 and you're like, you bastard, what are you doing to me? I was about to go out. And I don't know, it's just some of those games, man, they'll just incite you. I'm sorry, to go back to that board game flip, like what did everybody else say? Were they just like, what are you doing? All the pieces are on here.
No, we were just in such shock, dude. Like, it was like at least 3 minutes of like awkward silence on like, that shit just happened right now. Nobody look at her. Nobody look at her.
They're like, man, we ought to put her in jail. No get out of jail free cards.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That is so crazy. I cannot wait to ask her about that. I'm going to say, Chris said your favorite game was Monopoly. Why is that?
Oh, she will know as soon as you say the word mono.
Right. Mononucleosis is what I meant. That's awesome. Well, on that note, Chris, you're number one, please.
All right, so I'm keeping with my dark theme, and I'm going to go with the movie Candyland. But not just any wholesome family fun Candyland. Guillermo del Toro is going to direct my Candyland, and we're going to go straight horror with this damn thing, and it's going to be amazing.
You know, some of the characters in Candyland did look kind of scary anyway, so I guess that makes sense.
Telling you, man, some of those characters with the GDT spin on them, oh, iconic.
You know what I thought you were going to say when you mentioned Candyland was something like Wreck-It Ralph, you know, where Vanellope von Schweetz lives, like that whole, what is the bad guy in Wreck-It Ralph's name? His name is Candy. It's like her game is basically like a variation of Candy Crush or something. King Candy. Okay. King Candy is the bad guy in Wreck-It Ralph, and played by Alan Tudyk. Of course it's played by Alan Tudyk. God, that man is everywhere. And King Candy is... That's exactly why I thought of Wreck-It Ralph, because when you said Candyland, because the whole place looks like Candyland. It's like filled with candy. But of course, you had to take it into a dark twist. I was afraid you were gonna say something like Candyland and Django Unchained, Leonardo DiCaprio's Candyland.
No, that's too far.
Yeah, right. I was like, damn, Chris, that's really dark, bro.
That's bordering Jeremy status right there, man. I don't know about that.
Man, I would be terrified to ask about some of Jeremy's adaptations of some of these games. Well, I can see Del Toro doing pretty much anything, but his creative imagination is just unparalleled, man. He's unbelievable. And yeah, I would give him a Candyland theme. And of course, it was funny how we didn't talk about plot lines for any of our game movies, because like, how can you have one? It seems very complicated, but again, that's where we're just producing these movies and not directing them ourselves.
We are the idea makers, and that's about it.
If you don't have any more thoughts on board games, I mean, before we go, like, what's your favorite board game? If you had a personal preference.
If I had a personal favorite, me and my family love to play Wahoo. Old game, man. Like, you buy these homemade boards and use marbles and dice, and it gets with us, it gets pretty cutthroat, man. Like,
What's the point of it? I've never heard of that.
So it's basically like Sorry. You have these marbles you got to move around the board and then enter a home base. But along the way, you can get hit back to your starting, and it takes forever to get around. You can take shortcuts if you want to, if you roll a certain combination of numbers and stuff like that. So yeah, it gets pretty cutthroat, man.
Man, that's what was the name of it again?
It's called Wahoo.
Wahoo. Okay. Yeah, we play a bunch of games, man. We have like Clue, Monopoly. Scattergories is fun. The Logo game, we play that quite a bit.
I love the Logo game.
But one that is obviously my favorite board game of all time is Seen It. Because, I mean, come on.
Nobody wants to play with you.
That is the problem. I can't ever get anybody to play that damn game with me, man. And I love it. I end up having to play the game all by myself. But sitting here thinking, this is the greatest game I have ever seen in my life. You know, obviously due to the simple fact that I love movies more than anything in my life. But that's also my downfall because, again, nobody wants to play. I was at the store the other day and I actually saw a Blockbuster game. It's a card game, I guess, and you basically ask questions about movies and stuff. And did I buy it? Hell no, I'm not spending money on something I'm never going to use because, again, nobody's going to let me play. They didn't even let me play my Oscar ballot game with them because they knew I would pick more than everybody else. I mean, I did, just how it goes. But
I'll tell you this, man. I will challenge you to a Seen It game, but it has to be a version of my choosing.
Oh, interesting. Which version, or do you have a choice?
I have it, and nobody ever wants to play with me, but it's friends Seen It.
Oh, dude, let's do it. I mean, I don't know if I could beat you in a friend's trivia or in a friend's Seen It, but man, I could give it my best, man. That sounds fun. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody will play that with you, just like they will play that with me. I think we could find a happy medium and challenge each other. That would be pretty good. So the next time I see you, man, we definitely will do friends Seen It. Man, I don't think I've ever played that, to be honest with you.
Well, then I got an upper hand. I think I've played it enough times by myself that I know all the questions, so it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, because then they release all these expansion packs, and a lot of games are like that. When one thing is standardized, then they kind of release a lot of expansion cards for different games just to keep some variety in there. It's kind of like when we got Cards Against Humanity, we played that so much that we were just like, okay, all the cards are just basically the same, and then you get expansion pack cards, and you're like, oh, okay, well then now all these are the same and stuff. And something with Seen It, it is like you can't. The only way to expand that is just to buy a different version of that. And I tried to convince Sonia. I said, look, they have Seen It Disney movies. Like, you could probably beat me in these, you know. And I honestly think she probably could, but she still won't do it, man.
That's funny.
Well, Chris, I guess it's about time that we pack up the board and make sure we have all of our pieces and put it into a plastic bag because we never remember to keep the other bag that they came in and close up this board, sir.
While you're putting up the game, go ahead and wherever you're listening to us, hit that subscribe button and follow us on the podcast platform that you're listening on, and then leave us a review. We'll read it, and we would much appreciate it. It helps us just get seen a little bit more on the podcast platforms and gets us pushed out there. And then if you're on all the social medias, follow us on there, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Look up the Screen Addicts Podcast. You'll be sure to find us. And then go back to Facebook, look up the Screen Addicts Fanatics group. There we're most active, dropping trailers, movie news, and just sharing all sorts of fun stuff with everybody there. And then also, Steven has been doing some really, really awesome movie reviews over on our TikTok. Go check those out. He just dropped his newest one about the John Wick movie he just watched. And we'll get into it a little bit later this week on our mini-sode, so make sure you come back on Friday and give that a listen for Steven's full review. Guys, if you have any suggestions, any questions, anything else you want to get at us, you can always email us at screenaddictspodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. As a reminder, we're also on YouTube podcast now. YouTube is pushing podcasts, and we want to be one of the first big ones in their new little platform that they're on there. So this episode will be on YouTube. If you know anybody that listens to a podcast on YouTube, suggest us. We're getting around to getting a video where it's a video of us talking, but for now, it's just the audio. I promise it's still really, really good stuff. So give us a follow on YouTube as well.
Sounds good. And, like you said about the TikTok page, and I guess on Instagram, if are curious about some of our reviews, just go ahead and watch some of those, because I'll be sending out reviews faster than we drop our episodes. So if you can't wait, they're always there ready for you to go. And I guess it's something a little bit more timely. And I think someone's going to be doing some TV reviews.
I am. Before Wednesday, I'm going to drop a review on the first half of this season of Mandalorian. Going to get into it a little bit, and we're going to see what you guys think.
TV Viegas is in full effect, baby.
That's right. That is it for tonight. Guys, as for me, remember this one thing. I am always the thimble. Good night.
Adios, amigos.
Thank you for listening to the Screen Addicts Podcast.
Support for the Screen Addicts Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SCREENADDICTS at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.